The number one reason why people's relationships fail is fights about money. A Kansas research team discovered that is the number one reason. Fights about money are even more than fights about children or sex or the in-laws. So I'm here today with the wonderful Jeremy Newsom, the incredible Chris Tate. We're going to explore this topic so that you can get the best out of your relationship, but also make sure that you have a total understanding with your partner, one way or another, about how to handle money. Now, you might know me, Louise Bedford. I'm a best-selling author. I'm the co-founder of the Mentor program with Chris Tate at tradinggame.com.au. And you might also know Jeremy Newsom. Jeremy is actually our most excited and positive and most watched guest on Talking Trading. Jeremy's fame is even that above many of the market wizards on talkingtrading.com.au based on the number of watches. I don't know if you know that, Jeremy. Jeremy, tell us a little bit about your background, because you are way famous and it's exciting to chat with you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really pumped about this discussion because you're absolutely right. As you mentioned at the very beginning, most fights, most breakups, most divorces, it really does hurdle around that money issue. And you and I were talking about this when I was in Australia back in previous November, and you had your boardroom presentation. It was phenomenal. There was tons of traders there. And I was just walking around asking questions. And what actually ended up happening was people were asking such phenomenal questions because it was the very last presentation of your boardroom. And so people are going back and forth discussing like how their wife felt or how their husband felt, how they dealt with things. And you and I almost simultaneously looked at each other and I was like, this is a webinar opportunity, because I don't think that very many traders openly talk about, you mentioned the S word, but sex and financials and relationships and how to blend all these things together. Because as traders, you're an entrepreneur, like you have this crazy drive, you have this crazy mindset, you have these crazy beliefs. How can you link that with a really positive relationship and have it be progressively phenomenal for the rest of your life? And I think that's what we're here to talk about today.
Absolutely. So this is how not to drive your partner absolutely crazy as a trader. So
I probably should leave. I've got nothing to offer.
So the first topic I'd like to chat about is to meet your partner where they're at. You know, everybody has a financial thermostat, and you may be further ahead than your partner is. But it's important that you don't bombard them with where you're at and your vision for the future, because you'll drive them crazy, absolutely crazy. And I think one thing the three of us have had in common in our past is that there will have been times that we have driven our spouse crazy. Firstly, have you sat down and explained what your vision is to your partner? Or have you just said, I'm doing a bit of trading on the side and it's a hobby? The way you position trading will make a heck of a difference to the way they perceive and the way they back you as a partner. So firstly, explain to them. Don't expect them to be a mind reader. And often we only get reflected back what we put into the world. So if you're saying this is just a little aspect of my life, rather than this is important, this is where I want to go, this is where we're heading, how can you expect them to back you? Chris, have you ever found that with your partner, that perhaps your partner hasn't understood where you're at and you've had to alter your views to be able to explain to Sharon about this?
I'd probably take it a step further back and say that, yes, these are all communication problems, but in all honesty, they shouldn't be problems that are arising partway through the relationship. If they're occurring then you've clearly not discussed them before the relationship really took off, and you've not discussed them in the embryonic stages of being together. And so I actually think there's a first step. And the first step is to make quite clear to people what your aims, ambitions, money goals are. Because people, as we know, have these really odd views about money that they've inherited from their parents, that they've picked up from their friends. And unless you can start to clear that baggage away early, then it's almost like a barnacle for people. It's stuck to them. So getting it off them is really, really, really hard. I'm in the fortunate position, is it fortunate? I don't know, where my partner really doesn't care where the money comes from. Yeah. The money doesn't have a source or an owner. She accepted a very, very long time ago that I don't have a real job. And this is the thing, and this is something Jeremy and I spoke about last year, is we don't have a real job. And it's the point he raised, is that you're an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, you have a different belief system. Yep. You don't have a job that says, well, I leave with my packed lunch at 7:30 to get the 7:45 into town, and I get back at 6. It's, well, the day might start at 5 a.m., the day might start at 10. But again, if they're not aware of that beforehand, then you're bound to run into problems. And I don't think I don't want to sound cynical and negative, but I don't think any amount of post-event counselling will get some people over that hump. I think some people just get stuck with the wrong people. Their belief systems just go straight past one another.
And how have you found this for yourself, Jeremy, in your relationship?
Well, one of the most important aspects, as my boy Chris mentioned, is communication. So when you have in your relationship, and again, this doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse relationship. This could be a friend. This could be someone that you live with. This could be a roommate. This could be a mom and dad if you're young. This could be brother and sister. All kinds of people this can relate to. But the communication aspect is massive, and really setting expectations, because a lot of people do not fully understand, number one, what the stock market is, and number two, the amount of money you can make, but at the same time, how quickly you can make it. You'll agree with this, Luis, and we've seen the scammers all over the internet where, hey, you got $13,000 and now it's $1 million. You're welcome. Thanks for buying my course. We know, we've seen that, and people do have this expectation that they can start with $30,000. They put in 3 months of hard work, and now it's 90. Yeah. And they're going to tell their spouse that, or their spouse will think that without them ever communicating it, because it's the stock market. Oh, you're going to get into day trading? Wow, it's amazing. We need to have proper communication set up, and that's one of my goals. Is the relationship I'm currently in, and hopefully will be in forever. When I'm discussing with her like money and bills and situations, we have to plan as far ahead as we can, because this month could be really tight or this month could be amazing. Yeah. So you have to be thinking through, you have to be talking about, you really have to communicate those expectations and realize, especially for those who are starting out, it's not going to be easy, and you're not going to get rich immediately. It will not happen. The market will humble you if you do. If you make $1 million in 3 months, please pull it out and keep it.
Yeah. But you've actually just mentioned something really interesting, because whilst this topic is aimed at spousal relationships, you mentioned parents. And parents always, irrespective of who they are and irrespective of what they say, always have a vision of the career path their child may or may not follow. Mm-hmm. And I can guarantee you, in the top 10 list of things most parents have, trader is not one of them.
No,
trader is somewhere way down the bottom under someone who for a job wipes dogs' bums.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And so it's this notion of communication has so many facets to it, and unfortunately, parents have such an insidious influence in people's belief systems and the way people think about money, the way they think about careers. My father had conniptions when I left academia. His friggin' head fell off, and it fell off for years. I mean, it was already a bit loose, but and so sometimes, again, you don't want to sound cynical, you're going to run up against people who you can't convince.
Yeah, I wonder with that whether it's because parents often want their children to be safe, and trading sometimes doesn't feel like it is safe and consistent.
Bingo.
Yeah.
By the same token, such parents would be happy that their children join the police force or the army.
Yeah.
Because it's a steady job. Yes, it's a steady job where people shoot at you.
But it's also well known. You know, what we're doing, it's more on the entrepreneurial side. rather than something that has a set career path and a career ladder that people are familiar with.
It's that word entrepreneur. It's the word Jeremy uses. It's the word entrepreneur that freaks people out.
Yeah.
Because it's that certainty that if you're in a relationship, man or woman, doesn't really matter. Usually there's a person in the relationship where security matters a lot. And then you have the person where it's like very like all over the place. You need crazy diversity. You need uncertainty. You need spice. You need variety. The certainty scares me. Like I get afraid of commitment. So being committed and sticking in a job or doing something all the time, that terrifies me. So there is that polarity that definitely needs to be discussed for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably another thing to consider so that we don't drive our spouses crazy is to agree on an exit plan. Now, one of the things, and I'll speak from a female's perspective and a female's point of view, if we go back to the time in terms of evolutionary biology when we were in the caves, now if a female and her children were kicked out of the community group, they went into a situation where they starved and her children starved. And we can still feel that. A lot of women can still feel that. You know, that's why with my teenage daughter, the worst thing for her is to be shunned. You know, if she's shut out and people aren't talking to her, that's striking some sort of biological chord in her that is just twanging in the most horrible of ways. So for women especially, if we think we're going to lose, if we think we're going to have our security threatened, that of our children threatened, that can be awful. So if you're the spouse, and especially if you have a female as your partner, make sure you build in scaffolded rules around when you're going to stop. Now, one of the things that we teach members of our mentor program and our boardroom is we say if-then statements are very important. It comes from the weight loss industry, as so many of these psychological aspects do, because there's so many people trying to lose weight at any one moment. What you do is you say, if I lose 25% of our equity, then I will stop entering new trades and I will seek a higher trading authority, such as Chris and Louise, such as Jeremy, in order to look through and to see what I'm doing incorrectly. Now, it could be they're doing everything correctly and it's just the market's being a little cow, but it could be refinements are needed. Now, to build that in and to have that conversation with your spouse, I think is incredibly important. Jeremy, is that something that you would advocate as well?
That's such a good idea. And absolutely, it's something that has to happen early because again, a lot of spouses are initially going to have the belief of, oh my goodness, like, I have no idea what you're doing. So be very clear on, this is how much money I'm going to create an account with. This is how much I'm going to trade with. And these are my goals. The exit plan should also be timed during the day. So I know that you mentioned it as far as account size, and I'll absolutely speak on that, but you also want to tell your spouse, this isn't my time where I'm at work, because I work from home and so does my girl. And so sometimes I'm like, hey babe, remember, like, 9 to 11, I'm in the zone, I'm doing my thing, because sometimes she'll just forget, come and knock on the door. Hey, let's talk about the car. And it's very clean and very concise where you have to have those end, begin, start. And then when you are starting, I know you want to go back to the charts. Every trader is a maniac. Every trader is addicted to this stuff. I get it. You got to turn it off at some point, put the phone down, put the computers away. So have a schedule, stick to that, and then absolutely have an exit point and discuss it with her or him. And ready for this? Please follow it, right? Be disciplined, be honest. Like if you're not a nice person and you're kind of greedy and you really don't like people and you don't like following rules and you're really dishonest in general, you probably don't want to make a lot of money because you're going to turn kind of an evil person, right? You want to be a great exemplar of who you want to become so that you do share honestly and openly and you talk very clearly and you share your emotions and you share your fears and you share your successes with whoever you were with.
But that's the thing. The point you make about having a structured routine that everybody understands, I think that actually helps take trading from, in some people's mind, the realm of gambling to a business.
Yep.
Because the thing I've noticed in the past and with other people is that they seem to confuse trading with going down the racetrack. And the two are vastly different. It's impossible to get off a horse that's losing halfway through a race. You can get off a trade that's losing halfway through. And it's trying to convince people that that's a very, very different thing. That's not what we do. We have a business, and the business is money. Yes, it involves moving money and responding to things. And yes, many people do simply pull trades out their bum and make things up as they go along. But for those of us who treat it as a business, it is structured. So, as you say, when the door is shut, I'm at work. Don't knock, don't come in, don't say the car needs unpacking, don't do any of that shit, because that will drive me mental. And don't walk in the middle of a Zoom call, because that's even more annoying. So the point you make about structured routine that everybody understands is such a powerful one. We've had mentorees who've struggled with that, even to the point where they've gone to put a lock on their office door. Because the boundary's just not being respected, and that's a respect matter more than anything else.
Actually, we've got one mentoree, Jeremy, who has a hat that he wears when he's trading, and it's basically when he's wearing that hat, it is a do not disturb sign, which I think is a classic. I mean, at least it's a signal.
Is that like when you used to leave the sock on your door in your dorm room?
That's it. Same thing. Same. Just put a sock on your head. It's almost the exact same thing. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I love the example you mentioned about the horse race, because I always talk about that, but I use it in the form of roulette, only because I don't bet on ponies. But in Australia, it's super accepted. So I love that you're just like, I never actually heard that example before, and so now I'm absolutely going to steal that for the rest of my life. So
feel free.
Yeah, thank you.
Another aspect to consider is it really you are threatening your spouse's security. Now, Jeremy, I do particularly remember a little chat that we had. We were on a yacht on Sydney Harbour. Oh my gosh. It was extremely windy, but it was magic. And we were watching the sunset, and we were talking about how obsessed we are with not only our own trading, but also helping other people. Now, the difficulty is, I do think a lot of people who are attracted to trading do have that slightly obsessive side. I recognise it in myself. I'm sure you recognise it in yourselves, guys, too. That can lead to mentionitis, where we are always talking about the markets. We're talking about charts, we're talking about indicators, we're talking about money. You know, how exciting is that to completely always be involved with this? I mean, we're having this conversation because the three of us are really into this, right? Passionately into this. For goodness sake, we've all written books about it. And to write a book, you know that's such a big ask. We can just keep on talking about this forever. So we have to give our spouses a little bit of a break. We have to remember that they have other aspects of their lives that perhaps we should be interested in, and that if we're always talking about trading, it's like you've invited a third person into your relationship. You're threatening their sense of security because that's all you've got on your mind. And we're probably becoming a little bit boring from time to time with that as well. Do you notice that in your own relationship, Chris, or is that something that you keep separate from your wife?
I'm sorry, I was thinking about the markets you were saying.
Exactly.
No, look, I'm very good at building watertight compartments around areas of my life where things don't bleed into one another. And so because of circumstances, my wife has no interest, and so there's no need for that. So that's an automatic watertight door. When someone has no interest in something, then that brings that to a halt anyway.
Yeah, handy.
And I look, to be honest, I do like to leave the market and charts behind at some stage. One of the most irritating things, or one of the double-edged swords that we now face, is that this little device enables me to trade every market in the world at any given time. It doesn't matter what it is. When I first started trading, you actually had to ring somebody up to trade the ASX, and that was all you could trade. And so, look, that is a problem, and I can see it's a problem for some people. But I'm fortunate. I'm in a situation where it's not an issue.
And Jeremy?
That's a phenomenal question. It's an amazing point. And I love the word mentionitis. It's very good point. You're absolutely right. The thing is, we do have to realize that's a challenge because, as you mentioned, traders generally are pretty obsessed with this thing. They think about it all the time. They want it. They do it. They always talk about their friends, and they're always going to bring it up in conversation. So I'm absolutely not the best to bring up another thing other than the markets if I'm at a party or something. I try my best to, like, if someone says, "Oh, we're thinking about Tesla," I just try to shut up. I want to listen to them. I want to hear what they think. I don't want to be the person that knows, because when you go out, when I leave, when I try to go on it, when me and Svetlana go on a date or we go somewhere, we spend some time together, I really do my absolute best to put my phone down, like Chris said, and talk about, try to find out what she wants. What is she interested in? What's her opinion about things? And talk about kids and houses and dogs and the future and the past, and have discussions about bills and what you're trying to accomplish and what your goals are and spirituality and what they're working on. You definitely have to pour that into it because, yes, we can be easily obsessed on the markets. My best thing to do when I'm leaving the house, which is right behind this wall, I go, okay, no market, no stocks, no discussions. I close the door and I don't bring it up. Do my best not to bring it up until I get back in the house.
Nice.
But that's the point you alluded to very, very early on. And it is this notion of communication.
Yeah.
And communication is a two-way street. Many people believe that communication is, I talk, you listen. No, that's not communication. That's you being a dickhead. And that, unfortunately, is a vast number of people. Yeah. It is that, and you said it so well, showing interest in what other people do and what they want to do.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing, but some people are very, very poor at it because they're either narcissistic, they're self-centered, they couldn't give a damn. There are three really important people in their life, me, myself, and I. And so we come back to that thing. But it also comes back to this notion that the thing I found is that very good traders are humble, which means their communication is very humble. They're not constantly talking about what they own, what they've just bought, how much they've just made. You would actually never know with a lot of people. I remember back in the day, one of my largest clients, when I was still a broker, had a net worth of about $400 million. You wouldn't know. Yeah. Like, lunch was downstairs at the sandwich place. You just would not know because it was just something that, look, there is this old thing that the English say that gentlemen never discuss price. That is, they never talk about money.
I think that's how they sell expensive suits, though.
It is. It's from Savile. It's a saying they have on Savile Row where they make the vastly expensive bespoke suits in London. And you never ask price because gentlemen never discuss price.
And then when you get to the end, it's $30,000. Oh my gosh!
But it's a little bit like people who say, "Well, what fuel economy does your McLaren get?" Mm-hmm. If you have to ask, you can't afford one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so your communication has to be humble with people. It has to have an interest in them because people remember how you make them feel, not really actually what you do for them.
Bingo. That's so true. That's such a good point. And I'll say this, everyone listening, not everyone wants to be a trader, and it's okay.
Right, that's it.
What?
I'm going to end this right now.
We need doctors and like veterinarians and garbage men and doctors. Like, we need people that can help us with the world. Yes, right? You need police, you need fire, you need everyone that can help. Not everyone's going to be a full-time trader. Sure, they can trade. They can take advantage of the markets. Everyone should understand money, and everyone should understand how the market works, but not everyone's going to be an active trader. And that's what I had to learn like 3 or 4 years ago when I met someone. And if they didn't trade, I'm like, well, I'm not going to talk to you. So see you later. We're not friends anymore. But if you get only traders and your only discussions with traders, you actually will get to a place where you do get burned out. Yeah. Because at least for me, sometimes after a hard week where I'm down and I'm losing, I feel like I just got punched in the face by Mike Tyson. I don't want to talk stocks. But then I look around and all of my friends are stock market people. I have no one to talk to, and I just sit there and pout.
Yeah.
It's good to have diversity. It's okay to have someone that doesn't fully go all into the markets sometimes.
Actually, Jeremy, just getting back to one of the first times I talked to you, and I asked you, so what do you do to handle a loss? And you said, I go to the gym and I exercise so hard until I puke. And honestly, I just thought, oh, we're going to be mates.
If everyone needs a puke day in the workout calendar.
That's it. That's so true. It is so true.
Yeah.
Yep.
And another aspect to be aware of is to be aware of the importance of identity. Mm-hmm. Now, we ran a survey, Jeremy. The results were fascinating. We found in our database, we found out how supportive is everybody's spouse. Okay, so 70% were males and 30% were females that brought in the answers. And I'll just give you these results because I think they're fascinating. Sure. 5% were hostile. 40% were curious about the markets but scared. 10% were neutral. 30% were interested but timid. And really, when you look at that, the majority are curious but scared. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting in itself. I think that really people are not going to be fascinated about the things that you're fascinated in. But if you can take that with honour and honour the relationship and realise that they are curious and let their curiosity flourish by not bombarding them with information about the markets, and just a little bit here and there, a little tidbit. You don't have to give away the entire farm when you're discussing these things, because maybe they're going to come back to you as questions if you position it correctly. I think sometimes taking those baby steps is very, very important. And how have you found that with your people that you look after? Because you look after a load of traders, Jeremy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now, first of all, shout outs to you beautiful humans, because you got the 70-30 ratio. It's a great ratio. I'm trying to increase it myself, and I know you are as well, because we need more women in finance. Yeah. It's very pale and very male. But you need to get the female numbers up, but it's about the same, 70-30. I haven't done a survey like this, though, and that's why I probably should.
Yeah, because actually the peak of the survey, I forgot to give you just this one extra figure. There was only 15% which were fascinated and backing their partner all the way, and an equal partner in the markets, only 15%.
And I'd be really interested to see, of those numbers, who trades profitably currently and who doesn't, because if you don't have a supportive spouse, I'm not saying you don't make money. What I'm saying is it's hard. You probably resent it. Like, it's like going like a month without sex. It's like, why are we here again? Like, what are we doing? Like, why are you being so hostile? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this not working out perfectly? And I think you're right, Chris. It's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
What surprised me is that 5% are actively hostile. Because that's interesting. Imagine you had a career. Let's pick an archetypal one. Let's pick a doctor. Let's pick a doctor.
Sure.
And your partner is actively hostile to the fact that you're a doctor. I mean, the question is, where do you go from there? Because there is obviously such a degree of resentment that it spills over. I would be fascinated to see what the rest of the relationship is like.
Yeah.
Because
I think so. It's not necessary that you do have your spouse's entire support, but I do think you have to be aware of that, and you have to learn how to self-soothe, and you have to learn how to validate yourself rather than expecting your partner to validate you and say, atta girl, atta boy, that whole pat on the head because you've done well. You need to stop expecting somebody to give you a trophy as a trader, and you need to take responsibility for yourself. And if you're the one with the vision for the family, don't you dare stop. You keep on going, because the person beside you sometimes only realizes how wonderful you are after the money starts rolling in by the bucket load. During that growth process, they may not realize what they're really headed towards. Like, Chris has just had his backyard completely renovated. It was quite amazing. It's a huge project, Jeremy. Now, Sharon has never, Chris's wife, has never questioned where that money came from. But heck, she's enjoying that backyard.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I love the fact that you went on a nice little rampage right there, Luis, and you're 100% correct. At some point, the support, regardless of where it is or where it's coming from, if it's not your spouse, like if they are absolutely hostile about it and they just hate what you're doing, that's got to be stressful. But if they're just curious and scared, that's okay. And if they're interested but timid, that's also okay. That both of those tell me that they need a little bit of education. They need to spend some time. But in order to do that, it's a compromise. It's a, my girl or my boy or baby boo, spend an hour with me, watch this video with Luis, Chris, and Jeremy talking about the relationship thing, talking about how we can do this. And let's spend an hour a month talking markets and talking finances and talking where I'm at. And then I'll spend an hour a month with you getting a pedicure or whatever it is that's her thing or your thing or his thing. And just go back and forth, because it is, again, like Chris said, a two-way street. You're not just going and talking and saying demanding. You got to be able to flow with it and make sure that both of you are on the right side of the scale.
Yeah, that's great. Anything else that you've got there to add so that we don't drive our spouses or spices, as the case may be, crazy?
It just comes back to that notion. I love the idea of a 1 month defrag, almost like you have a house board meeting. It's like when I used to live in share houses as a student. Once a week, once a month, we'd have a house meeting. What did the house need? Who was being a complete idiot? What we were going to do? And unfortunately, I think what happens is that people get into relationships and they assume that they're going to be perfectly fluid and smooth and frictionless and not at all like a business. But sometimes you actually have to bring the elements of business into the relationship and say, well, this is where we are. This is what we're doing. These are the sources of friction I perceive. Let's note them down. Let's discuss them. Let's see if we can't find mechanisms of dealing with those sources of friction and find a way to fix them. And look, without again being perfectly overly cynical, people might actually get to a point where they have that negotiation and they realize that they're actually better off separate. And that in and of itself is a valid thing. We've all seen that, where people have gone to week-long seminars or weekend seminars, and at the end of the week, a couple have decided to split because they've come to the realization in a neutral setting, and it is neutral, that their aims, aspirations, values, the things they want are completely different. And there is no longer sufficient overlap for them to stay together. And that in and of itself is a valid decision. And yes, it's a hard decision, but it's valid. And I think people have to be aware that that might be the end point of their sitting down negotiating, of their house board meetings, of their spending time together. This realization that, I think we've reached the end of our road.
Yeah, I love that. And in general, man, it's a battle, right? That's the thing. It's when you get to that conclusion, a lot of times it can be better for both parties, and it's okay if you have to move on. And yes, it can be painful. And yes, it's always painful. It's always upsetting initially. But when we're doing this, when you're succeeding in life, it's hard. There's always this statistic that 95% of traders fail. 95% of people fail at anything they do.
Yeah.
So 95% of doctors didn't make it, right? Now they're a veterinarian or a dentist or a trader. 95% of NFL or soccer or football or basketball, horse racing, it goes on. 95% of everyone doesn't quite make it. Success comes 2 weeks after you feel like giving up. And what we have to do is we have to realize that this is a battle, and your spouse is not going to make it better for you. They can help you, they can support you, but at the end of the day, like Luis said, this is a mental game. All success is a mental game, and it's your decision to figure out what obstacles do you need to remove in here, what barriers and hurdles do you need to remove in here, and what things can you do in here to help both your relationship, your family, and your passion for trading become an incredibly profitable endeavor for you.
Absolutely. Jeremy, I love it.
I just want to say, I always love the 5% statistic. Yeah. Because that means that 5% of people are making 95% of the money, and we never run out of people to take money off, ever.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So Jeremy, how can our people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two places where you're welcome to reach out to me. reallifetrading.com is the name of my stock trading website. If you're interested in more about me as a person, jeremynewsome.com. Jeremy spelled with 2 R's, Jerremy. And I did just release a podcast called Broke to Woke, which is where I kind of outline my journey. Yeah. So I outlined my journey, one of my friends' journeys as entrepreneurs. She gives us her perspective on real estate, and I give my perspective in the stock market and just kind of what battles we had to go through to get where we are, which is a very globally perceived presence. And yeah, it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of heartache. It's a lot of tears. But just like you and Chris, you have to surround yourself with people who know more than you, who have more experience, who have more wisdom, so you can get pulled to where you want to be rather than pushed by your problems.
Jeremy, you have to know you're one of my favorite people in the entire world. So likewise. I'm just cheering you on and barracking for you every step of the way. Now, if you're one of Jeremy's people and you'd like to get in touch with Chris and with me, come to our website, tradinggame.com.au, and register for our free Trading Made Simple e-course. And you'll also be given my trading plan template. Now, that is just gold because you'll be able to go through every step and make sure you've covered every aspect of effective trading. And check out Jeremy on our talkingtrading.com.au podcast. Jeremy, you've been on several times. You've spoken to our financial journalist host, Caroline Stephen. We just are your harem, you know that. So
not certain that's the right word, but that's okay.
Caroline's words. So you have got the biggest fan base with our people and across the world. We loved it when you came over to see us, and we're hoping that you'll be able to do that again very shortly. So congratulations on listening to this resource. We admire what you're doing because you're looking to change your life, and we are the people to support you every step of the way. See you.
Bye.